Hello and welcome. We begin with South Africa. The first group of white South Africans has arrived in the United States after President Donald Trump granted them refugee status as victims of what he calls racial injustice. The group of around 50 white South Africans was welcomed at Dulles Airport in Virginia following their flight from Johannesburg. The group includes families with children. Some arrived waving small American flags. They were greeted by the U.S. Deputy Secretary of State and Homeland Security.
On behalf of President Trump, Secretary Noem, we're just so grateful that you guys are here. Everybody within DHS, we've been so excited to be able to get you guys here to process, to vet, everything, so you guys get a really warm start.
Shortly before the group's arrival, President Trump said he is expected to meet with South African leaders next week. Trump repeated his allegations that Afrikaners are fleeing a terrible situation back home.
Because they're being killed, and we don't want to see people be killed. Now, South Africa leadership is coming to see me, I understand, sometime next week. And, we're supposed to have I guess a G20 meeting there or something. But we're having a G20 meeting. I don't know how we can go unless that situation's taken care of.
South Africa has reacted by saying the white Afrikaners who have accepted resettlement in the United States did not face any form of persecution in South Africa. America's biggest trading partner in Africa is now under fire from Washington. As soon as Trump took office for a second term, he accused the South African government of confiscating white Afrikaans farmers' land as a part of reforms meant to redress inequalities entrenched under the former apartheid system. For context, whites make up 7.3% of South Africa's population, but own more than 70% of the land, even 30 years after apartheid ended. Afrikaners are one ethnic group in South Africa, mostly descended from Dutch settlers. They constitute approximately 5% to 6% of South Africa's population. Though a numerical minority, Afrikaners have historically held a strong economic position in South Africa, but Trump says they are now facing persecution. The South African government has called his claim misinformation. It has denied mistreating whites or forcibly seizing any land. Pretoria has also dismissed allegations by tech billionaire Elon Musk, who was born in South Africa. Musk has repeatedly accused the black-led government of encouraging a white genocide and is believed to be an influential voice behind Trump's narrative. The issue has also strained bilateral ties. Trump has cut all aid to South Africa, expelled South Africa's ambassador, avoided G20 meetings, and imposed high tariffs on South African exports. As Trump's relocation plan unfolds, many in South Africa have expressed surprise that whites are being granted victim status in South Africa. Even some groups that represent white South Africans have rejected the U.S. offer. Meanwhile, in the U.S., the Episcopal Church's Migration Service is refusing a directive from the federal government to help resettle white South African refugees. The church cites its commitment to racial justice and reconciliation. It says it's painful to see one group of refugees selected in an unusual manner receive preferential treatment over others who have waited years in dangerous conditions. Now, this comes even as Trump has slashed most refugee programs, including those for Afghanistan, Iraq, and sub-Saharan Africa. But he has fast-tracked applications from white South Africans. South Africa has called for dialogue. President Cyril Ramaphosa said last month he spoke to Trump and agreed to meet soon. Trump now says South African leaders are expected in Washington next week. Will there be a resolution? Now, for more on this, we have with us Boitumelo Ben Senokoane, Associate Professor at UNISA and a political commentator who is joining us live from Pretoria, South Africa. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much and good afternoon.
Now, how unprecedented is the Trump administration's decision to grant refugee status to white South Africans on the grounds of racial discrimination? And what legal or political precedent might this set for future asylum claims?
Look, I'm of a view that you won't find any black racist anywhere, because you'll know that racism is on the basis of certain privileges and certain color of skin, and in most of the time it will be a white skin disguised as whiteness or any other form of ism. So it's unfounded that you'll find any form of racism against any white anywhere and in South Africa. By the way, those whites, 49 whites that have left, claiming that there's been a discrimination against them. If you had to go one by one out of the 49, classify them or categorize them, you will come with a different conclusion. And I dare say that Afrikaner, for example, Afrikanerdom or Afrikaner nationalism was found on the basis of a religion only for Afrikaners, economic benefits only for Afrikaners. And when the 1994 Constitution was drafted, was a document drafted as a base for equality and justice, and in ensuring that the injustices of the past are corrected and are attended to. And the base that they are ill-treated or their land is taken, it's questionable.
Right. And what are the possible diplomatic implications of this move for US-South Africa relations, especially with President Trump expecting South African leadership to visit amid this controversy?
Of course, we will know that the AGOA agreements, trade agreements, will be affected. We know that trade in general will be affected. But that does not mean that South Africa should budge, especially in issues pertaining to addressing the injustices of the past, the issues of equality, the issue of ensuring that there's transformation in the country. If that comes with a penalty against the ordinary South Africans and South Africa itself, I think it's a price that we should be willing to pay as South Africa, because the Trump administration's time will be only for 5 years. And we know that every era, every dictator, their term comes to an end.
Right. And given the Episcopal Church's decision to cut ties with the federal refugee program over this case, what does this reveal about the broader ethical and political divides in the US regarding asylum policy and race?
If you remember the statement that was done by Bishop Rowe, he explained very clearly their stance, to say that they do this because their view is rooted in racial justice, reconciliation, and historical integrity. And I think that's where it is beginning. But it is also interesting to note that they've observed selective treatment of those Afrikaners. And it is for those reasons that the church, the Episcopal Church, decided to distance itself from such, and with an understanding, because if they have a relationship with the Anglican Church of Southern Africa, they understand what is the history of South Africa, what were the battles, that the struggles that ordinary South Africans were having when the minority Afrikaners were ruling the country. It is out of that background I think they made a good decision, a determination in ensuring that they distance themselves from the reversals or the gain reversals by the democratic dispensation or South Africa. So I think their decision should be respected, and as an ordinary citizen myself, I really respect the decision by the Episcopal Church.
Right. Thank you very much for being with us on the show and for sharing your views.
Thank you very much.
At Firstpost, we are choosing to hold on to accuracy. That means we won't always be first, We may not get you your breaking alert, but what you will get is what we owe you, and that is the truth. Verified, checked, and cross-checked. We rely on sources and verified ones. After all, that's what separates a journalist from a loudspeaker. But sometimes even we miss a beat, and when we do, we will tell you. Like yesterday, we ran visuals from a registered news agency. That visual turned out to be fake, so we are taking accountability. And from now on, we will cite the source of every visual, every picture, every video that you see on Firstpost will have a source mentioned. That is our commitment to you. We will wait, we will verify, we will ask again, and only then will we tell you. No noise, no panic, just the facts. Because right now, that is what the country needs most.